Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I am joined again with my good friend, Rabbi Stuart Federow. And in Rabbi Stuart Federow and Exodus Project fashion, we are going to address a comment of the week.
Do people ever think about what they say before they say it?
I don't think so, especially not on the YouTube comment section.
I think it's all gut reactions that are visceral and not thought out. But
yeah,
whatever.
Their worldview's challenged and they're lashing out for it.
Right, exactly.
But before we get started, everyone, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, give Rabbi Federow and I a big thumbs up, and check the description for this book, his book, Judaism and Christianity: A Contrast, available English and Spanish, as well as a whole library worth of other books and resources, including his Hebrew Jumpstart class is linked in the description. Check all those out. Helps us out.
Learn how to read Hebrew for free.
Yep.
Watch it all you want. YouTube. Cool.
So, yeah, let's...
now that the selling is over.
Now, yeah. Yeah. Sales pitch over.
Yes, but please buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Helps us out, guys. Really. We put a lot of time and effort into bringing you this content, always for free. So if you ever feel so inclined, even just giving us a share is great,
What the world do.
Okay. You want me to read it?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so we have this fella. I hope you watch this. His name is Scott France, and he commented, who's walking on water in this verse? And then he cites Job 9:8, where it reads, he alone stretches out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea. So let's go to Job 9.
Yeah, exactly. He who removes mountains and they know not, when he overturns them in his anger. Who shakes the earth from its place and its pillars tremble? Who commands the sun and it rises not, and seals up the stars? Who alone spreads out the heavens and treads on the waves of the sea? Who makes the Bear, Orion, and the Pleiades, and the chambers of the south wind? Who does great things past finding out, and wonders without number? It's a beautiful line.
It is.
It's an incredibly beautiful passage.
Mm-hmm.
But one line that he thinks is Jesus did, and all of a sudden this is all about Jesus. It's very circular reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
Who removes mountains and nobody knows about it, and overturns them in his anger, shakes the earth from its place and its pillars tremble, commands the sun, seals up the stars, spreads out the heavens, and treads on the waves of the sea. You can't pick one line and then take a phrase out of that one line and then say it's all about their Jesus.
Right.
Okay. Did Jesus also remove mountains, overturn in them anger, shake the earth, its pillars tremble, command the sun so it doesn't rise, and seals up the stars? Who spreads out the heavens, who makes the constellations?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who chambers, who chambers, hides up the south wind? Okay. Who does the great things past finding out, and wonders without number? It's circular. Okay. This is about Jesus, and Jesus did this because Jesus is God, and this is about Jesus, so Jesus is God.
Right. Yeah. Without the preconceived notion of believing Jesus to be divine, synonymous with God, you would not even be able to read this that way.
Right. But they tell a story about Jesus where Jesus walked on water, so therefore he fulfilled this quotation that has nothing to do with the Messiah.
Sure. Okay, fine. What if it is about him? What about the other 10 phrases that he didn't do?
Notice the translation you used doesn't use question marks. Who shakes the earth from its place and its pillars tremble? Who does this and this happens? Who shakes the earth from its place and its pillars tremble? Who commands the sun and makes it not rise, and seals up the stars?
Right.
Who owns it's? You see what I'm saying?
It's not asking questions. It's just describing the miraculous things. Right.
It is asking questions, but they're rhetorical questions. They're not. The answer is supposed to be self-evident that it's talking about God. And they say, well, Jesus is God, so this is about Jesus. It's circular. Jesus is God, therefore anytime it talks about God, it's talking about Jesus. And it proves that Jesus is God because who else did it except the Jesus that we made up stories about?
Right.
And why would it be Jesus for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words out of the whole page
Right.
that they claim he did, and all of a sudden, it proves that Jesus was the Messiah. All right. Next thing.
Yeah.
Matthew 14. This is the story about Jesus. And in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. They said, it's a ghost. And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, take heart, it's me. Don't be afraid. Well, therefore, he fulfilled the non-prophecy
Right.
of Job.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you were reading that as rhetorical questions. I simply didn't read it that way. I just read it as descriptions of the miraculous things
Right.
that Hashem can do,
And even if you translated it as simple descriptions,
right.
He did this.
Yeah, it's not prophetic.
He's the one who did this. He's the one who did that. He's the one who.
Right.
It's all God. Oh, but Jesus is God, so Jesus is this. And how do we know? Because Jesus says, yeah, okay.
Right. And the thing is, you have nowhere in Matthew 14, if any gospel were to say that Jesus was fulfilling something by walking on the water, it would be Matthew, because he uses fulfillment citations all the time. But where is it? So it's something that some Christian had to have scoured the scriptures for to try and find something that could be applied to Jesus, because a story in Matthew says he walked on water. Right.
By the way, I thought my grandfather walked on water. As a matter of fact, that'd make a great country song.
There's lizards that walk on water. Are they God too?
Yeah. Right.
And Peter did for a few minutes, or for a few seconds also, according to the gospel. So does that mean Peter also stretches out the heavens? I mean, it's preposterous.
Right. That's yeah. All right. So what about this whole thing about miracles? Does anybody who does a miracle automatically become divine because they did miracles? Deuteronomy chapter 13 explicitly tells us that even if someone does a miracle, it doesn't prove them to be anything.
Right.
Okay. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass, whereof he's spoken to you, saying, let us go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them. So it does happen. He says he's going to do a miracle or a sign or a wonder, and it does occur.
Mm-hmm.
But the message he's bringing you is polytheism. Verse 3, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams, for the eternal your God tests you, proves you, to know whether you love the eternal your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall walk after the eternal your God and fear him, and keep his commandments and obey his voice, and you shall serve him and cleave to him. And that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken to turn you away from the eternal your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt and redeemed you out of the house of bondage, to thrust you out of the way which the eternal your God commanded you to walk in. So you shall put the evil away from the midst of you. In other words, even if somebody says they're going to do a miracle and they do it, but the message they bring contradicts everything else comes from God, ignore them.
Right.
In the extreme, kill them.
Yeah.
But you don't listen to them. And you certainly don't abandon God because he did a miracle. Ooh, he walked on water. So let's all give up our belief in the one true God.
Right.
Oh, right. But Steve, don't you know that they believe in the one true God too? Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, when I read Deuteronomy 13, what I really get from it
Yeah.
is the message proves the prophet, not the prophet proving the message.
Right. That's incredibly well put. That's
And
incredibly well put. The message proves the prophet. The prophet does not prove the message. Brilliant. That's excellent.
and that's free will in a nutshell. You can follow whatever you want to follow, but is the framework upon which the miracles or signs, wonders, prophecies, whatever they're doing, does it align with what you already knew? That's what your fathers
And
knew.
and
And
and and they knew it from God.
right, because they were there at the base of the mountain, right?
The
So
issue is, does it contradict what you already know came from God?
mhm.
If somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to do a miracle, and then they do the miracle, but the message they're trying to get you accept is, oh, I don't know, believe God can be divided by three people where each person of God is separate from the other two, but somehow they're all one and the same. Now, where have I heard that before? Let's see. Hindu Brahma Vishnu, um, Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades, Jupiter. I said Poseidon already, didn't we?
Yeah, but it's Neptune in Rome.
I get them all mixed up. But the point remains the same. Okay, if it contradicts what we know that came from God, reject the messenger and reject this message.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So even if Jesus walks on water, the message about Jesus. See, we're not really clear on what Jesus actually believed or said. All we have is the record 30 to 60 years after Jesus was dead and buried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We don't know what Jesus actually said. We only have the record of people who believed, who are basically Christians, and what they said about him.
Right.
And as we've said repeatedly, they can't even agree on his last words, much less on a whole lot of other things.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets rejected. Okay.
Ooh, okay.
1 Kings 17. How many other places have there been where people do miracles?
Plenty.
And yet
Plenty.
Judaism never said they were God, believe in them instead of God.
Right.
Okay. It's because the message they brought, okay, paralleled what they'd already knew from God, that they would accept him as God's prophet.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, let's talk about Elijah the prophet. 1 Kings 17. And it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. And his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. That means he's dead.
He's dead.
And she said to Elijah, what have I to do with you, O you man of God? Are you coming to me to call me my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? And he said to her, give me your son. And he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into a loft where he abode, and laid upon him his own bed. And he cried unto the Eternal and said, O Eternal, my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourned by slaying her son? And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Eternal and said, O Eternal, my God, I pray you let this child's soul come into him again. And the Eternal heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived, which means he was resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, see, your son lives. And the woman said to Elijah, now by this I know that you are a man of God, and that the words of the Eternal in your mouth is true. It sounds like she's saying, only because I got my son back do I believe you. What it should say is, everything you've ever told me aligns with what I already knew from God.
Right.
And therefore, I believe what you're saying. And by the way, thank you for giving me my son back.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, Elijah is supposed to be God or the son of God or deity of some kind because he resurrected.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Or he himself didn't resurrect, but he brought somebody else back to life. So did Elisha. Okay, next. Oh, this is Elisha. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Second Kings chapter 4. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, thy servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant did fear the Eternal, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. And Elisha said unto her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what have you in the house? And she said, your handmaid has not anything in the house save a pot of oil. Then he said, go borrow the vessels abroad of all your neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when you are come in, you shall shut the door upon yourself and upon your sons, and you shall pour out all of these vessels, excuse me, and you shall set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. That's like a what's it called? A jar that never goes empty. You keep pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. Okay. And it came to pass when the vessels were full that she said to her son, bring me yet a vessel. And he said to her, there is not a vessel more, and the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil, pay your debt, and live, you and your children, on the rest. In other words, the money that you made from selling the oil that Elisha brought about as a miracle. Are we supposed to all of a sudden say that Elisha is God? You know, is this supposed to be, when they invented the story of Jesus taking very little food, like 5 fish and bread or whatever, and feeding a whole bunch of people, did they invent that to parallel what Elisha did? Are we supposed to say, just like they say of Jesus, well, he's God, that's why he did this, so Elisha is God because he did this? That's how
or did God use a man to,
to bring about a miracle?
Right, and help someone out in need. It's
see, Steve, we're very tempted that when we see a miracle to believe in God.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it's believing in the one true, real, honest to goodness, bona fide God, it's a good thing. But if it leads us astray, if it puts us into a position of idolatry, if it makes us worship someone or something as if they are God when they are not God, that's the definition of idolatry, and it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's the whole point here. If Jesus walked on water and then said, now don't believe in me, believe in my Father. Okay, believe in everybody's Father. Okay, then okay, fine, but it's not what he said.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's, and as well as I do, we can't know exactly what the guy said or not, but what his followers said, what the followers said about him, that's, we got with ended up with something completely different, and that's what we have to weigh everything based upon. This is the religion, this is what they ended up believing, what he was, what he did.
See, that's the point is that the religion of Jesus is called Judaism. The religion about Jesus is called Christianity.
Right.
Okay, and
that's the latter half of that same chapter.
It's very important. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God, that's Elisha, said, let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. The Eternal had hid her from me and has not told me. Then she said, did I desire a son? Oh, this is not the same story that we just did. This is a different one. Okay. Then she said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go your way. If you meet anybody, don't say hello to him. And if he says hello to you, don't answer him. And lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, as the Eternal lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff upon the face of the child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and he told him, saying, the child is not awake. So when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door upon them twice and prayed unto the Eternal. And he went up and lay upon the child and put his mouth upon his mouth and his eyes upon his eyes and his hands upon his hands. and he stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes, and he called Gehazi, and he said, "Call this Shunammite." So he called her, and when she was come in into him, he said, "Take up your son." And she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and took up her son and went out. I don't remember. It may not be the same chapter as the story we had before about
I
Elisha.
think it is. It's just later in the chapter. Yeah.
But yeah, or maybe a later, whatever. The point is that once again, okay, you had Elijah, then you had Elisha, and here Elisha a second time does a miracle. But notice it brings people to believe in the one true God, the eternal.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep. People did miracles all the time. But if the purpose of the miracle is to take people away from God, don't believe the person. Don't believe the miracle worker. Right.
Right. Now, I mean, what else would you even need Deuteronomy 13 for if only one religion could do the miraculous, right? That there's no free will in that, you know?
And why would you need 13 if the whole proof of a messenger is the miracle?
Right. Right.
So everything's got to match. He's got to say, "I'm going to do a miracle," and then do it. But then the message he brings has to be in consonance with everything we already know comes from God.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So frankly, guys, in conclusion, know the context of what you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
We know Job is not a prophetic book, right? So know the context of what you're going to comment from, even if it seems like those 4 little words might match with something Jesus did in the New Testament. We could use that same logic and open up a Shakespeare book and find our own Messiah somewhere else.
Well put.
You know, so
as we have said before, don't know we said it in this video, but if you take the text out of the context, all you're left with is the context. Take the text out, you're left with a con.
Yeah. So know the context of what you're going to be quoting from.
Yep.
Don't listen to every 77 prophecies fulfilled by Jesus pamphlet that you read from your local missionary.
Yep.
And furthermore, understand what the Torah has to say about these issues and how you discern what's right and what's wrong, and then start weighing that against the beliefs and
study.
And I think you'll come to a different conclusion. Yeah, exactly.
So that you really know what God actually said.
Right. Yeah, don't when I was a Christian, I remember when we'd have someone newly convert and they asked, "Well, how should I read the Bible?" They would always say, "Oh, well, read the New Testament first and then read the Old."
Yep.
What, to me, that just boggles my mind. If you want it to be something cohesive and
front to back,
and the whole and the whole point is to be, knowing the origins all the way up to where you're at now, shouldn't you kind of start at the beginning and work your way forward? But it was a tactic. It was a tactic because I only assumed something like that would arise because you had people starting at the beginning and saying, "Hey, this doesn't mesh." So it ended up having to be a tactic to avert such things.
As I've said before, if a Martian who knows nothing of Earth religions lands and goes to a hotel and pulls out a book from the drawer that happens to be the Gideon Bible, I wonder, do they still put a Bible in a hotel? I don't know. But what if they? Well, let's say that they do, and he pulls out a Gideon Bible. If he starts from the beginning, Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, and goes through the entire Hebrew Scriptures part, when he gets to the New Testament, he starts reading. He goes, "Wait a minute, this is the opposite of what I just read."
Right.
But if he starts reading from the New Testament first, and then goes back and reads the Hebrew Scriptures, he's already bringing to the Hebrew Scriptures a preconceived notion of what he learned from the New Testament.
Right.
And so it's going to appear to fit unless he reads carefully.
Right.
Yep. Like saying that just because Jesus walked on water, he must be God, he must be the Messiah, and then quote a passage that has nothing to do with the Messiah and only is a doxology, a praise of God.
Right.
Yep. But that's what they do.
Yes, sir. Very well put.
All right.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys.
Yep.
Rabbi
Quick.
Stuart Federer, author of Judaism and Christianity: A Contrast, as said before, link in the description. Check that out. Hebrew Jumpstart, check that out. Also in the description. And
Many,
shout
many
out
more books.
and many, many more books. Yes, exactly.
Yep.
Also, we have in the description, I forgot to mention this, we actually have a question board in the description.
Cool.
So if you have a question, feel free to click that link, send out your question, and we'll gladly answer it. Whomever
You get to answer it.
yeah, whoever we get to answer it. So yeah, feel free to use that resource.
Yep.
And we'll address those things in time and properly. But yeah, until next time, everybody, I'm Steve Eisenhower. This was the Exodus Project. Rabbi Stuart Federer. I'll catch you next time, everybody.
Absolutely.